As a former prosecutor, you've seen firsthand this issue play out in people's lives, both victims and also those who've done the offenses. But what difference would this law make on a personal level? Give a sense as a former prosecutor, someone who's been on the front lines protecting our communities, why this is important legislation, this First Step Act.
Imagine if you had a member of your family, maybe a son, maybe a father, maybe an uncle, maybe a nephew, maybe a brother who had been convicted of something, who made some significant mistake in his early life, and he had been sentenced to serve many decades in a federal prison.
Yeah.
Imagine the impact that would have not only on your family member, but on all the other people.
Across generations, doesn't it?
Across generations.
Yeah.
And you can't get that time back. Now, that is not to say we shouldn't punish people.
Right.
It's not to say that we shouldn't imprison people. But we made some decisions a few decades ago that might have made sense back then, but that we now realize have some unintended consequences. From time to time, we've got to make adjustments to those.
Right.
This is one of those adjustments. And it's one of those adjustments that I think is a low-risk, high-yield proposition.
Right.
If we can get this passed, this will get more of the people out of our federal prisons and back home in their communities and working good jobs and being productive members of society. That, in turn, will help free up resources to guarantee that those who pose the greatest risk to society, the greatest threat of violent behavior, can be locked up and remain locked up for as long as we need them to be.
Yeah.
So we're adjusting a few of those federal minimum mandatory sentencing laws modestly so as to give federal judges an additional degree of discretion with regard to discrete categories of offenders. For example, under the ACCA, the 3 strikes minimum mandatory lifetime penalty would be reduced from life down to 25 years.
Right.
And then there's a corresponding 20-year minimum that would be reduced to 15 years. So most of the time, this isn't going to make a huge difference in the overall number, but in some cases could make a big difference.
Yeah.
We're making a few adjustments like that in addition to adding some provisions to allow more offenders to take advantage of the so-called safety valve measure, which can allow judges in some instances to say this isn't quite the type of dangerous offender that we want to subject to a really harsh minimum mandatory, and if they meet those criteria, we'll be able to reduce their sentence modestly.
And President Trump has been helpful on this issue. Can you talk a little bit about ways the president's been helpful and what that support means?
I applaud President Trump for his efforts in this area. He's been really helpful.
Yeah.
He has wholeheartedly endorsed, embraced, and advanced this legislation. He has promised to sign it, and he's got a real great opportunity to do so right now in this Congress. I think this is a fleeting opportunity. It's been an opportunity many years in the making, but this is bipartisan. Look, the previous version of the First Step Act received 360 votes in the House of Representatives.
That doesn't happen very often these days on any issue.
No, it doesn't. And you don't get to 360 out of 435 without a whole lot of people from both sides of the aisle agreeing. We've now got in the Senate a bill that, at a minimum, if it were brought to the floor today, would receive 77 votes.
That's incredible.
We've got 28 Republicans who have told me personally, I will support this, and still more to come. And we've got 49 Democrats who have said that.
And President Trump has already said, not only will I sign it, but I'm supportive, and this is a good idea.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
So it's ready to go. If this thing is close, it's ready to go after a lot of years of work, right?
Yeah, it's ready to go. So all we have to do is have the Senate Majority Leader, Mitch McConnell, bring it to the floor. If he brings it to the floor, this will pass overwhelmingly in both houses. It'll be signed into law by the President of the United States, and after President Trump signs it, it will meaningfully inure to the benefit of the American people.
Yeah. So a lot of folks are watching right now. What should they be doing that perhaps can help get this across the finish line? What can activists out there across the country, whether they're in Florida or Ohio or Alaska, what can they do to have an impact for this good legislation that helps people, that saves tax dollars, and that genuinely makes our culture and our communities and families stronger? What can they do to make a difference here?
They should call their senators, and they should make corresponding posts on social media calling for their senators to support this legislation, to support the First Step Act, and to demand that the First Step Act be brought to the floor for a vote.
Yeah.
We need as many co-sponsors as we can get.
What's the co-sponsor number at right now on the First Step Act?
You know, I can't give you an accurate number on that.
Okay.
I've got the firm yes commitment against
Sure.
28 Republicans and 49 Democrats.
Okay.
The co-sponsorships are some subset of that. I don't have exact numbers on that.
And if it comes to a vote, the votes are there. It's just a matter of urging senators to ask for a vote. Let's let this good legislation just have the light of day, a chance to have a vote.
That's right. And the reason why we ask for both of those things, to support it and to call for a vote, is that the more senators, particularly the more Republicans, since we've got all the Democrats now, the more Republicans who support it, the more likely we are to get a vote.
Yeah. So there's enormous urgency to getting this done in December. It's been years in the making, but there's a couple of reasons why it's important to get this First Step Act passed now. Well, why is that, Senator?
We know we have the votes right now, and this is based on a very carefully tailored compromise negotiated between Republicans and Democrats in the House and in the Senate. So we know that we can get it passed overwhelmingly in the House and in the Senate and signed into law by the President right now. On January 3rd, the leadership of the House of Representatives will change, because the new Congress will come in. The Democrats will now have the majority. Now, Democrats are supportive of criminal justice reform. The type of legislation that the new Democratic majority in the House would likely put out is likely legislation that, unlike this provision, could not pass the Senate and would be unlikely to get the president's signature.
Right.
That's why it's so important that, you know, the stars have aligned right now in such a way as to make this possible now. What is possible today, I don't believe will be possible in the next Congress. This is why we need to act now. And it's not just between now and January 3rd, even though that's technically the end of this Congress.
So if activists are out there thinking about being involved and helping on this legislation by reaching out to their senators, it's important to do it right now. Really, the next week or so is the crucial time.
Exactly, exactly. Because the decision's got to be made. It's either got to be voted on or scheduled for a vote within the next week, which means in order to move the ball, they really need to start acting in the next 24 hours.
That's a great point. Well, folks, you've heard it. Over 360 votes in the House for criminal justice reform. Senator Lee points out well over 75 now votes in the Senate. If we can just get a vote on the Senate floor. This is a big moment for helping a lot of Americans and their families and really our whole nation. So we urge you to act. Senator Lee, thanks for your leadership on this.
Thank you very much.
You bet.